Today we have a man who wants to represent himself, and you know what they say about that. He might have a fool for a client. I like to think of it like this. Imagine a man who can fix a lot of stuff around the house. He is so handy. And he knows how to do a lot. He has installed stuff with simple directions, put together things, etc. But now someone needs to climb up on the electric pole and fix the electricity. Well, hell, he can do it.
So if you'll come forward to the podium, please. All right, we are on the record in file 22-21117-FH. People versus Nicholas Christian Bosell. We are here today for a final pretrial conference, and we are proceeding partially in person and partially by Zoom. First, I have the attorneys place their appearances on the record, beginning with Mr. Sneed.
Isaac Sneed for the people.
John Van Dusen on behalf of Mr. Bosell.
All right, answer. You are Nicholas Christian. You are Nicholas Christian Bosell.
Huh?
You are Nicholas Christian Bosell.
Yes, I stated that I do not require any legal aid or anyone to speak for me on my behalf.
All right. So at the moment, the public defender's office has been assigned to you, and right now they represent you. They represent you until I allow them to withdraw or allow you to represent yourself. So we'll talk about that right now. Ms. Van Dusen, how does Mr. Bosell wish to proceed today?
Your Honor, at this time, Mr. Bosell is wishing to dismiss our office and represent himself. He is under the claim that the defense attorneys can actually dismiss cases, and that's not the case of this, so it has to go to trial if that's what he wishes.
That is not what I said.
All right, let's just don't respond to her. Let me ask you some questions, okay? Mr. Bosell, is it accurate that you wish to no longer be represented by the public defender's office?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Are you going to hire your own attorney?
No, Your Honor.
Do you intend to represent yourself?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand you have a right to an attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that if you can't afford an attorney, that I would appoint the public defender's office, and I have done that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Or I apologize, probably the district court judge did that. Why is it that you wish to discharge the public defender's office at this time?
There have been several instances where my words have not been taken into account, where, like when my lawyer would be speaking on my behalf, there are several times where he did not disclose to the courts things that I had wished him to, such as the fact that the very first call to the police in my record stated that the individual had green hair and shorts and was on a skateboard, and that does not match my description. The fact that I was threatened by a police officer when I was stopped for not providing my ID, that's a threat, and I'm a private citizen, and he is a public figure. I do not need to provide my ID over a threat. He threatened to arrest me of obstruction of justice. And last but not least, there is body cam footage of Kelly Sneed, the owner and operator of the shelter where this incident took place, off of her property, making slanderous statements towards me to the police officers that have no truth or validity to it, and she has no way of knowing if they have truth or validity to it, making jokes. This is on body cam that I had subpoenaed 19 days after I was arrested, and this did not come with my 21-day notice of discovery, and after which Mr. Sneed offered me personal recognizance bond, and none of this was brought to light, and this is another reason why I've received several deals that say I'm not getting a felony, but there's been no evidence provided. There's been no physical evidence provided against me. And my lawyer was telling me, Matt Murphy was telling me that I about have a 5% chance of not going to prison. So on that note, I do not think I would be caring for the public defender's office. Right.
Do you understand, Mr. Bosell, that you are charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, also known as felonious assault?
Yes, I am.
Do you
I'm
understand,
also aware that
Mr. Bosell, I'm asking some questions, and I want direct answers and nothing further. time later, I'll give you some time to speak. You need to further understand right now that anything you say during this hearing can be used against you if and when we get to the trial that's coming up, all right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand the maximum penalty for assault with a dangerous weapon is up to 4 years in prison and or a $2,000 fine.
Yes, Your Honor.
You've also been charged with assaulting, resisting, or obstructing a police officer. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Understand that the maximum penalty for that offense is up to 2 years in prison and or a $2,000 fine.
Yes, Your Honor.
Again, you understand you have the opportunity to consult with a retained lawyer, or if you can't afford one, we appoint a public defender. Again, you understand you have the opportunity to consult with a retained lawyer, or if you can't afford one, we appoint the public defender's office.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bosell, do you have any training in the law?
Study. Your Honor.
When have you studied?
My mother's been in the courts her whole life. I've been in foster care my whole life. I just wanted to know. I've always researched. Always checked my rights. I've always checked my laws. And I know that they have definitely been violated here.
Do you understand that the law in this case consists of the criminal statutes that you've been alleged to violate, the Michigan court rules regarding criminal procedure, rules of evidence, and any number of other court decisions that interpret those statutes and rules?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that if I allow you to represent yourself, you're going to be required to follow all of those statutes and court rules and interpretations of the laws?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that the prosecutor that's going to try this case has a lot of education, has been to law school, has passed the bar, and has spent a number of years studying specifically and being trained in the law?
Yes, Your Honor. If I might add, I do believe it is a conflict of interest for Mr. Isaacs to be working on the case because it is his wife that has been seen slanderizing me on school cam footage.
Stop. I told you a couple minutes ago that I'm going to ask you questions and I want answers to my questions. I will give you time later to tell me the other things that you want to tell me.
Yes, Your Honor.
But I don't want you to further interrupt these proceedings by interjecting the things that you want to interject.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that all of those statutes and court rules that I've discussed will control certain things, like whether you're allowed to ask certain questions or admit documents or photographs or other evidence that you might have to try to admit at trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand you're going to be responsible for the jury selection process?
I'm not entirely sure how that works, Your Honor, but yes.
You don't understand how the jury selection process works?
As I assumed, it would just be a piece of paper that we sent out to randomized individuals, and that is what would happen.
You understand that at the start of a trial, the court selects a jury, and that is done through question and answer session with a number of jurors, and then each side has a right to challenge jurors for certain reasons and excuse jururs for no reason at all. Have you ever been through a process like that?
Have I been selected for jury duty? No, Your Honor. But that is the process you are right, yes.
Have you ever seen a jury selection process take place?
No, Your Honor.
Do you understand that as part of the trial, the court is going to read instructions to the jury about the law that applies to this case and how they're supposed to conduct their business, and that the parties are responsible for submitting their proposed jury instructions? Do you understand the jury instructions that would apply to this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
What are those?
It would imply that they would be to prosecute me to the full extent of the law if the evidence is there provided with the crime.
Have you ever read the model criminal jury instructions from the state of Michigan?
I'm not, Your Honor.
You understand that if you try to do this without a lawyer, you're going to be at an extreme disadvantage?
Yes, Your Honor.
understand that I would compare that disadvantage to myself trying to, I don't know, beat Steph Curry at a game of horse?
Yes, Your Honor.
What I mean by that is you may have studied, but you're not a professional in this. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand the prosecutor is a professional in this, and has experience trying cases, has experience with deciding which jury instructions are appropriate in a certain case and which instructions aren't. Experience with selecting jurors, challenging jurors, and all those things, and that you just don't have that experience.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you still want to represent yourself?
If I could speak freely for 1 second,
Go ahead.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I would rather represent myself dumbly and loosely than not have my wishes represented at all.
Well, do you understand that when we'll use your words dumbly and loosely, that if you do something in an attempt to admit evidence into the court that doesn't comply with the rules because you're not aware of the rules that apply, that you might not be able to present that evidence to the jury?
Well, absolutely, Your Honor.
And that if you had a lawyer who knew how to do it correctly, they would be able to present that evidence to the jury.
Yes, Your Honor. As far as I was aware, Mr. Murphy told me that there would be no more time gap or time limit or anything, like the deadline is already passed for evidence to be received in this case, for evidence to have already been brought to the court. I don't know if that's true either, because he told me that my court date for today was on the 10th. That's when I went and fired him.
I don't understand what you're telling me.
He's given me misinformation several times. They told me that there's no getting evidence, no more evidence on my behalf for this case, and that my trial would be on the 10th of this month, and that day is done past. I had to come all the way up here to find out, like up to the third floor to find out that it was not until this day, which was my pre-trial.
All right, so that's one of the reasons that you don't want the public defender's office to represent you.
I believe they're misrepresenting me, and yes, Your Honor.
Do you know what standby counsel is?
I do not, Your Honor.
So that would be that the public defender's office would sit in on the trial, and if you ran into an issue that you didn't know how to deal with, they could consult with you or address that issue.
That would be fine.
All right.
Your Honor, our office does not do standby counsel. The reason for that is the defendant can easily grieve us on that for saying that we gave him bad information. So what it is called is inadequate counsel, and that's what he would probably say in this case. We do not do standby counsel, and our grant does not pay for us to do it. In fact, we have law on it at this time.
I am going to take a break from this case for just a moment. I've got to take care of a case with an MDOC inmate before I lose them. So, Mr. Bose, I'll ask you to just take a seat back where you were for a few minutes. Let me take care of this case, and I will come back to you as quickly as I can.
Thank you, Your Honor.
A little later we returned to our handyman. I mean sovereign man. I mean, you know, On with the show. Oh, and thank you from Crime Time. Ciao.
We are back on the record now in State of Michigan versus Nicholas Christian Buxell, file 22-21117-FH. I have previously been having dialogue with Mr. Buxell regarding his request to represent himself. Person has a right to self-representation so long as the request is unequivocal, that the right is asserted knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. After a discussion advising the defendant of the disadvantages of self-representation, and so long as the self-representation would not disrupt, unduly inconvenience, or burden the court. I have interviewed Mr. Buxell this morning, has made what is, in my opinion, an unequivocal request to represent himself. I have reviewed what I believe to be the significant disadvantages of self-representation with him, and he has maintained, despite that he wishes to represent himself. He has conducted himself in a way this morning that I don't believe that allowing him to represent himself will disrupt or unduly inconvenience or burden the court. And so I am going to grant his request to represent himself. With respect to the issue of standby counsel, Mr. Buxell indicated that he would be agreeable to that. Ms. Van Dusen indicated that their office does not do that, and that she has some case law or something else which supports the idea that the public defender's office is not required to provide standby counsel in situations where people choose to represent themselves. I've not had an opportunity to review that. So with respect to the issue of standby counsel, I'm going to take that under advisement. I'm going to review the law on that. Ms. Van Dusen, if you'd like to provide me what you have, I'm going to look at that and then make a decision at a later time with respect to standby counsel. Mr. Buxell, you at one point raised an issue about Mr. Sneed being prosecutor with respect to this case, and your belief that he has a conflict of interest. Can you tell me what you believe that conflict of interest to be?
Yes, I believe that it is his wife that was on my police body cam footage that was submitted to evidence.
Well, let me just help you understand something. Nothing has been submitted to evidence. The trial has not started, so no evidence has been submitted to it.
I didn't know.
You are okay. So
that's kind of embarrassing. I apologize.
that's okay. You're telling me about a body cam video that you have seen.
Yes.
And you believe that Mr. Sneed's wife appears on that body cam video.
Yes.
Is there anything
Yeah,
else about
that is
that?
Kelly Castleberry.
That is Kelly Castleberry?
Yeah. That's not his wife.
So that would not be Mr. Sneed's wife. Obviously I haven't seen the video, so I don't know what you're talking about.
And I was pretty sure. If that's not the case, then I apologize.
All right. Okay, so at this point, there doesn't.
I guess
That does not appear to
discrepancy
be
there.
an issue. I'm sorry.
I guess there's no discrepancy there, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I guess there's no discrepancy there, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so the trial is scheduled for May 24th. That is a week from today. Mr. Sneed, are people ready to proceed to trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Buxell, are you ready to proceed to trial on the 24th?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have proposed voir dire questions been submitted?
Yes, they have, Your Honor, as well as jury instructions and a verdict form.
All right, Mr. Buxell, do you know whether proposed jury instructions and voir dire questions have been submitted by Mr. Burke?
No.
They have not, Your Honor.
The deadline was a week ago.
That's correct, Your Honor. He came into our office the day that we were proposed to do it and told us that we were fired.
But the public defender's office represents him until the court says otherwise. Yeah.
Understand that, Your Honor. We've tried to call him numerous times and we cannot reach him.
Mr. Bosell, do you need additional time to submit any proposed jury instructions and what other questions that you might have?
I would love some additional time.
How much time are you going to need to do that?
Whatever time the court is willing to give me, Your Honor.
Mr. Sneed, do people at this point have any objection to an adjournment of the trial date to allow Mr. Bosell to review his case and provide proposed jury instructions and what are your questions?
Your Honor, I would, because we already have subpoenas that have gone out. We've already contacted and met with the victim and other witnesses. This trial was scheduled pursuant to the court scheduling order back on February 15th of 2023. It's over 3 months ago. Mr. Bosell has had sufficient time to talk with the public defender or fire the public defender, and now 1 week before trial, he's asking for more time to figure out things which, in all likelihood, he won't be able to figure out. So I don't think more time should be granted to Mr. Bosell. This is not a complicated set of facts. This is an aggravated assault, felonious assault, and a resisting police case, which the resisting is on body cam, and we have the victim who's also homeless. We have him subpoenaed, ready to come in, and based upon that, we would like to proceed on the 24th, Your Honor. Thank you.
Your Honor, if it helps, the prosecutor has submitted jury instructions. They would be the exact same jury instructions that the defendant would actually supply the court. There is no defenses in this case.
So what I'm going to do is proceed to trial on May 24th. Mr. Bosell, in the meantime, if you have jury instructions or voir dire questions, which are questions for me to ask the jurors before they are selected to determine whether you want to challenge a juror or whether you want to exclude a juror, you can submit those, I will say, up to the day of trial, and we can resolve any discrepancies in jury instructions or voir dire questions at that time. But I do think it is appropriate to proceed with trial on May 24th. Due to the potential for prejudice to the people based on the fact that one of the witnesses who has been subpoenaed is homeless, and makes that theoretically more difficult to track someone down at a later date if we had to adjourn the trial and issue subpoenas. So we're going to proceed to trial on May 24th. Again, Mr. Bosell, you'll have an opportunity to submit any proposed instructions or jury questions up until that date.
If I may, I would also like to address the court that I am also homeless.
Okay.
I have nowhere to go. Like, absolutely nowhere.
Okay.
Still here, can still be found, Your Honor.
I understand that doesn't affect my decision. Okay, is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, can he stop by our office and we will print off the prosecutor's jury instructions, their witness list, and the charges and verdict form for him.
Okay. So what Ms. Van Dusen said is that if you'll stop by their office, they'll have some information that will likely be helpful to you as you prepare.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
I once again apologize for the unorthodox proceedings.
It's not a problem. It's absolutely your right to make the request that you have. So you're all set for today. You are free to leave.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sir, are you ready to proceed with Mr. Watkins?